everybody. Welcome to the Equestrian Facilities Public Participation event. I'm Kathleen Otto, Interim County Manager. I will be moderating the public participation event this evening. Joining me is the Clark County Council, including Chair O'Brien, Councilor Lentz, District 1, Councilor Olson, District 2, Councilor Blum, District 3, Councilor Mevigi, District 4. We also have a variety of staff members who are also listening in from the county tonight as well. Prior to the current pandemic, the council and staff heard from community members regarding equestrian facilities, both the importance of the equestrian facilities as well as areas that may need further conversation. Therefore, we decided to have this first public event with our community to hear feedback. The purpose of this event is for the council and staff to hear feedback from the community regarding equestrian facilities in Clark County. I would like to note that at this time, there have been no decisions made regarding code revisions, nor will any decisions be made tonight. For the process for tonight, participants will have up to 3 minutes to speak. I will remind you when you have 1 minute left, as well as 30 seconds left. When speaking, please identify your name and also identify the topic and number that you'll be speaking about. The council or I may ask clarifying questions if needed. If the 3 minutes are exhausted, in order to continue with the process, the speaker may be muted. As a reminder, the 4 topic areas include 1, building requirements. This could include items such as setback distances, storm drainages, occupancy limits, and any other feedback under building requirements. The second topic is private versus public use. This could also include requirements, standards, or any other topic under private or public use. The third topic is operational impacts. This could be include but not limited to noise, odor, dust, traffic. And then the fourth topic is other. This could include items such as definitions or any other items that are not covered by the first 3 topics. This event is streaming live on CVTV, Channel 23, and will be recorded. I will say the name of who will be speaking as well as the next person. My apologies ahead of time if I mispronounce your name. When your name is called, you should see a message come up on your computer screen stating that you've been added as a participant. Please just click OK. With that said, we're going to go ahead and get started with the speakers. The first participant is Scott Albindinger, and the next person after that will be Roger Morrison. Scott, you should be unmuted now, and you can begin.
All right, thank you. Good evening, counselors. My name is Scott Albindinger. I'll be addressing topic number 4, and I'd like to speak to the need for clear and well-defined code language. To start, I'd like to use section 40.260.040 of the code as an example. When carefully read, this section does make a distinction between animal boarding facilities and equestrian facilities. The requirement to house animals within an enclosed soundproof structure between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. applies to animal boarding facilities, but not equestrian facilities. However, because the terms are contained within the same paragraph of the code, there's a common misunderstanding that equestrian facilities are expected to comply with this requirement. We ask that the code be modified to make it more clear that equestrian facilities are not considered animal boarding facilities and are not required to house their animals in this manner. This is just one example of where unclear code language has caused problems for the equestrian community. Another would be the confusion as to whether an equestrian facility requires a Type 1 or a Type 2 site plan. I believe we'll hear from one member of our community tonight that has heard it both ways, depending on which person at the county was asked. The equestrian community is happy to do what is necessary to be in compliance with the county code, but we can't hit a moving target. Many of the requests we'll hear tonight will help to make the code reasonable, understandable, and attainable. It'll make life so much easier for our community and will also help us, along with those in the permit office and code enforcement, to all be on the same page. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Roger Morrison, And the next stop will be Peggy Nikirk. Roger, you should be unmuted. Please state which topic you'll be speaking to.
Of our referrals come from the VA. I'd like to invite each of the council members to visit Winhaven Farm for a tour to better familiarize yourself with an actual nonprofit setting involving horses. We have 13 on site with 9 involved in the therapeutic program. My comments this evening are on topic number 1 under building requirements. For an example, a 100 by 100 city lot is 10,000 square feet. A 5-acre parcel is 218,000, 22 times larger, and a 10-acre parcel is 436,000 square feet, 44 times larger. There is sufficient room on a 5 or 10 acre parcel for storm runoff to soak into the ground without extensive catch basins or an expensive site permit. My request to this council is, what justification is there to treat rural settings like they are in a metro housing development? Please eliminate, quote, complies with all stormwater and zoning reviews and permits as required by the current code language. And please increase the numerical threshold in the definition of an equestrian facility in 40.100.070 from 6 or more to 15 or more horses. In topic number 2, in relating to riding arenas, under the current code, a riding arena is not an agricultural structure, and they currently require a building permit, whether public or private. In my experience, the permit requirement has not always been enforced, depending on who and when one talked to at the county code office. My request to the the county council is add covered riding arenas to the allowed list of agricultural structures and grandfather in existing equestrian related structures, and then begin an enforcement on a very consistent basis for all new structures from this point forward. My request to the council also is eliminate any requirement for sprinkler systems in barns and arenas. Activating a sprinkler system with horses in a stall or in an open arena would create a disastrous situation that could be more dangerous to the horse and humans than the actual fire. Sprinkler system activation would totally terrorize most horses. Our 8,000
1 minute remaining.
Our 8,000 square foot arena and barn would cost in excess of $11,000, and the sprinklers could not operate from a well that only produces 15 gallons per minute. International Building Code, International Fire Code do not require sprinklers. The structures are for occupancy, and they're not residential in character. Finally, the county needs to take a position under topic 4 on the review standards permitting required for private barns. Are they animal boarding facilities or simply an allowable use? Finally, I'd like to suggest the county councilors establish a working group in conjunction with the Clark County Horse Executive Council and to work on the development of new codes in relation to equine activities. This was done a couple years ago with roadside ag stands. Seems to have worked out well. Let's do it again. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Next up, we have Peggy Nikirk, and after Peggy will be Carla Yarnson. Peggy,
Hello,
you should be unmuted now.
Thank you very much. This is Peggy Nikirk. I'm president of the Silverbuckle Youth Equestrian Ranch, which is also a 501(c) corporation. And we're an existing permitted equestrian facility whose mission is to promote health and change lives through our activities with the horses. I've spoken in front of the county before about the importance of this mission and the lives that the horses improve and change in our county. It's very important to provide for and protect our equestrian community and all that it does for the residents. Not all horses can be provided for by only the existing larger equestrian facilities that are here on the county. Smaller private barns are a large part of the support system that the industry relies upon to house and provide resources for the horses and their owners in the community. Therefore, we must provide equitable, reasonable, and obtainable code system to allow the smaller barns to exist and to be able to continue to be built to sustain this important resource for the county. So I would ask that under building requirements, again, all animal shelters, barns, run-in shelters, and including riding arenas be regulated as ag building classification and not have permitting uses be changed to impede this current coding. And animal riding arenas are not in that coding, they should be in ag coding. As to public and private use, clear definition of the private versus the public use of barns has to be established and separated from the larger equestrian facilities. Support services and training, education, vet and farrier care, and services that they provide the equestrian community by allowing those providers and participants onto the sites for animal care and education of both the horses and the riders should not be deemed conversion to public use. The support that they give 4-H groups and other equestrians in holding of meetings and lessons that are an asset to the community should not be deemed that conversion, but community benefit and health and safety. The general home the general home business rule of 7 vehicles might need to be waived for those benefits. I further suggest that the code already clearly states that management and enforcement of operational impact for noise, dust, traffic is already currently provided for in 40.260.235G, and therefore we have a solution to issues that might come up as to dust management and such. Other than that,
30 seconds.
I would hope that the existing equestrian facilities in the county be grandfathered in and not have further permitting issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. Carla Yarnson, as a kind reminder, please identify which of the 4 topics you'll be addressing. And after Carla will be Amanda Obleindinger.
Good evening, Council. I am Carla Yarnson. I'm speaking in regards to discussion topic number 2, private versus public use. I'm speaking tonight requesting that when you amend the equine code, you do it in a way so that it does not create an undue burden on rural landowners. One area of particular concern to me is ensuring that when we board our horse at a private barn, we are able to hire a professional trainer to work with both my daughter and our horse at the barn where we are boarding. A trainer helps ensure that the rider and the horse stay safe and productive as they work towards the rider's goals. The best way to learn how to work with a horse is to do it with guidance and support. Picking hooves and saddling up a horse are tasks best learned by doing, and it is quite important to learn to do them correctly in order to be safe. Utilizing a trainer or experienced horse person is especially important for our youth riders and for keeping them safe. We know folks that haul their horse to another facility to take lessons because their home doesn't have the facilities for riding. It just doesn't make sense to me to do it when our private barn has riding areas well suited for our daily riding and training experience. Hauling your horse to a lesson is expensive and time consuming. Just like I might hire a tutor or piano teacher to come to my home and provide instruction to my children, hiring a trainer to come to our private barn, which is the home of our horse, to provide instruction should be considered an acceptable practice and documented as a permissible activity in the updated equine code. On behalf of equestrian owners in Clark County, I hope and respectfully request that you amend the code to allow trainers to support horse owners at private equestrian facilities without imposing an undue burden on the landowner. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Carla. Next up, Amanda Obleindinger, and following her will be Tracy Kasten-Heel.
Good evening, members of the County Council. My name is Amanda Obleindinger, and I'm a 4-H leader of horses in Clark County. Tonight, I would like to speak on topic 2 on public versus private use. According to Webster's dictionary, public is defined as open to all persons, or a place accessible or being shared by all members of the community. Private is defined as intended for or restricted to the use of a particular person or group. Therefore, by definition, the private use of a barn, riding arena, or equestrian facility by its current definition does not mean that the buildings are used solely for the use of the owner alone. It means that the use of such amenities are restricted to a particular person or group. I ask that it be clarified that private equestrian barns, riding arenas, and other equine-related facilities should be allowed to function under an agricultural exemption, as these structures were erected for the housing, training, and care of livestock, which is what horses are classified as in Clark County. I propose that private barns be redefined in the code as any equestrian property boarding 6 or fewer horses not owned by the barn owner. This allows the owner the freedom to invite a select number of friends' horses to stay on the property and enjoy the amenities that this owner has worked hard for without penalty. Access to these amenities is only available to this select group and not to the general public. If the owner of a private barn is offering lessons or training on any of their own horses or the horses boarded there, they should be allowed to without penalty. If they accept payment for these services on such a small scale as this, they should be required to have the appropriate business license, insurance, and possibly a simple home-based business permit versus having to upgrade from agriculturally exempt to a Type 1 or Type 2 site plan. Many of our 4-H horse leaders are volunteers that offer youth opportunities and access to horses that they might not otherwise have. This is invaluable to our county's youth. I ask that the owners of private equine facilities not be penalized for volunteering their facilities for the use of meetings, lessons, training, and other educational opportunities for these types of youth-related programs. Again, they should carry insurance for such activities, but this should not impact permitting. I ask that the county define and clarify codes pertaining to public use versus private use of a barn or facility in a way that's fair to all, keeping the aforementioned information in mind. Codes should be clear enough to avoid misinterpretation.
30 seconds.
I ask that we find a way to keep horsemanship and education accessible for youth without penalizing our hardworking volunteers. I ask for a code that works with the people of our community instead of against them. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you, Amanda. Our next person is Tracy. I know earlier we were not able to connect, so we will try. If not, we'll move on to the following person, Dennis Forrester. So Tracy Casten-Heal.
Yes, ma'am. It's Tracy Casten-Heil.
Thank you.
I have been raising Paso Fino horses and breeding them since 2004. We are in the Camas area, and I will be discussing topics 1 and 3. I'm going to be basically echoing the sentiments of many of the prior speakers about building requirements to add, arenas and grandfather existing arenas and barns to an ag building zoning rather than commercial zoning as one would for structures like a Walmart. And we also are hoping for, there we go, for the use of trainers and boarders also to be allowed at the private barns like the previous speaker had suggested. Under operational impacts, it is really unrealistic for horses or to think that horses can be kept in soundproof buildings as is described under the animal boarding zoning code language. Horses were never meant to be locked up in a box, and that presents an undue burden on horse owners. And additionally, it can cause a lot of health issues for horses, such as stress, ulcers, and colic, because again, horses were not meant to be kept in boxes like that for so many hours of the day. I'm also asking that the ag building setbacks be changed from 200 feet to 50 feet, as can be found in other equestrian communities around the country. And that is all.
Thank you, Tracy. Dennis Forrester, and after Dennis will be Dion Schubach. Dennis, as a kind reminder, please state the topic you'll be discussing tonight.
Can you hear us?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Dennis Forrester. For this format, I've sent this stuff in. But anyway, my comments are based on our local experience involving a purchase of an R5 property and operating a non-permitted equestrian facility on that property since 2018. The current discussions seem to put our neighbors at odds with the entire horse community. My concern is this specific established neighborhood, so I do not comment on overall barn divisions in the county. That wouldn't be fair to anybody. Our goal is to protect our property and privacy, just like all of you have the right to do. So, as far as following our list of topics, under one for building, it's very specific in the permit process that a site plan review is done before any work is done. That didn't happen here. So we deal with the setbacks of the outside arena versus pasture fencing. Pasture fencing can be on the property line or in the building envelope. When you strip a riding arena of all of the vegetation and the grazing fodder, no longer meets Webster's definition of a pasture. So the setback should be as to what's an activity arena. So our neighbor to the north, if they're out there giving lessons to students or club riders or doing their practices, the guy can't even use his covered patio. They go inside. Just because you hear everything, you hear the shouting. One Sunday morning, somebody was using a whistle over there to direct drills for these other people. So private versus public. Structures that are erected or existing to invite the public in, I mean non-residents and everybody's general public until you meet them. So that's kind of shady right there. People
1 minute remaining.
Spaces should be permitted like any other small business for fire, life, or safety. So our operational impacts is our private drive has become the access road for the last 2 years to the facility. We've logged over 5,273 cars into the barn. We have traffic 7 days a week for team practices and lessons. Dust in both riding arenas with 12 to 15 horses on site. When the wind blows, it smells like we have horses.
30 seconds.
R5 should not automatically allow boarding on a non-personally owned horses unless approved by adjacent households. And we need a lot of specific definitions in the code, equestrian facilities, and some of the items that have already been talked about. And an amendment section specific to shared access where one of these situations occurs. So, and then the agricultural building was listed as for private use, and obviously it's not. It's for giving lessons and team practices. So, anyway.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dennis.
Yes, ma'am.
Next up is Dion Schuback, and after Dion will be Zach Wilcox.
Esteemed, this is Dion Schuback. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Esteemed county councilors, I will be discussing topic number 3, operational impact. And I would like to discuss that in terms of animal facilities or equestrian facilities. First, we ask that the code clarify whether private barns are animal boarding facilities. As was discussed by Scott Abledinger, there is confusion as to the definition and therefore if equestrian facilities are included under the definition of a animal boarding facility, we ask that the requirement of keeping horses in a soundproof and closed structure between the hours of 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. be eliminated from the code, as it is unreasonable and unsafe. Horses are relatively quiet and only make noise in distress, which is important for owners to be able to hear to address any emergent situation. This brings me to the question of noise standards, and I would like to point out that equine uses easily meet the code standards of WAC 173-60, including the noise limitation set for the 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. window, with horses allowed to remain outside a soundproof building at night. In terms of the other operational concerns, there are programs in place to help owners manage manure and control dust. The equestrian community and barn owners and managers have undertaken many measures, such as watering systems, arena footing that is specific to minimize dust, hauling manure off-site, and working with local ecology departments to manage manure situations in order to limit the impact of dust and odor on neighboring properties. And we are motivated to work together to comply with a reasonable code. Equestrian owners, both members of the community, barn owners, and barn managers are not interested in creating an issue. We want to have an opportunity to work together to address any complaints that are made to code enforcement to help every member of the equestrian, to help each member of the equestrian community to comply with a clear code that is reasonable. If code enforcement was clear, first off, if the codes were clear and if code enforcement could work with violation complaints and a board of committed equestrian citizens, including the Clark County Executive Horse Council, we would then be able to work with any barn owner that wasn't in compliance to ensure compliance of a reasonable code, and then we could avoid all the issues and concerns that have been brought to light. Thank you for considering our requests.
Thank you. Next up is Zach Wilcox. Again, just a reminder to please state the topic you'll be discussing, and after Zach will be Amy Mitchen.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can. Thank you, Zach.
Good evening. Thank you for taking your time with us to help the Clark County Equestrian members. I'm here to ask the council members, the county manager, and code enforcement aspects of the desperately in need of the county to take a position on some of the same stuff that's already been talked about, but the standards that require permitting for a private barn, the animal breeding facilities are essentially an allowable land use in a rural ag or FR zone. Additionally, I'd like to ask the council again to consider those used putting a small amount of horses to be exempt under the agriculture protection. These barns are not places for station or people are occupied by people. Thanks for your consideration, and we'll always look forward to your clarity.
So Zach, I do want to let you know that you are cutting out.
Okay.
And you might want to keep trying, but it's getting hard to hear.
That's okay. My internet is really bad, but it was just a repeat of everybody else.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
Amy
the first bit was perfectly clear. Did he do something different? I couldn't understand the beginning. I'm sorry.
Okay, next up is Amy Mitchen, and after Amy will be Michelle Wilcox.
Yes, thank you. Amy Vesneski here. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening and offering the equestrian community the opportunity to share with you our thoughts and concerns. The code needs to be amended to provide more clarity. The lack of clarity has had a dramatic impact on my life and my quality of life. To start, clarity between private and public facility would be extremely beneficial. Knowing how the code interprets instances where a landowner keeps horses and invites a small group to participate in therapeutic, charitable, or community enhancement activities, including 4-H, equine therapy, and recreational activities would be helpful and would decrease neighborly conflict. The definition of equestrian facility needs to either be applied fairly, considering an actual circumstance of a particular land use, or amend to be made clearer that non-commercial activities do not convert private barns and riding arenas into equestrian facilities. It would be beneficial for the county to acknowledge that many barns and arenas are private, people that own horses, that ride their own horses, and do not conduct boarding of horses for commercial gain. With that acknowledgement, these people should not be required to any site plan review or permitting. For clarity, I think it would be important for the county to include code language that keeping horses for private use is not within the definition of equestrian facility. Living in the Pacific Northwest, equestrian owners rely heavily on the use of an indoor riding arena. Horses require exercise, conditioning, and structured physical activity. Due to this need, an indoor riding arena should be considered an agriculture structure. Furthermore, private riding arenas should be clearly defined and should be exempt from building permits under either the agricultural exemption or another exemption. Additionally, I ask that I ask that any future code-related issue be addressed with transparency and a clear path out of code enforcement that does not include having to hire an attorney or having to relocate your home. Code-related issues should not require pulling public records in order to understand what specific issues need to be resolved in order to decrease neighbor impacts or nuisance complaints. Code enforcement should be viewing citizens with positive intent and assist in helping in a solution-focused approach. I really hope that you guys take this information and amend the equestrian code to what it needs to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Michelle Wilcox is next, then after Michelle will be Jason Fila.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. First, thank you guys for taking your evening out away from your families to hear us out. We really appreciate that. The number that I want to talk about is to private versus public, and more specifically towards the riding arenas. Currently, under the current code, a riding arena is not an ag structure. It requires building permits, whether it's private or public. So essentially, I have 3 asks for that. The code should be amended to clearly define what constitutes a riding arena and the applicable building permit process. Open to the public should be exempt from the building permits under either the ag exemption or another exemption. My second ask would be, and I think this was mentioned earlier, but my second ask would be regarding the sprinkler systems. Those should be exempt. Neither the IBC International Building Code or the IFC International Fire Code requires sprinkler systems in these structures. They are structures of limit occupancy and not residential in character. And then my third ask is for a middle ground for semi-commercial structure needs to be established, whether this is within the Clark County Code 40.260 or the building code. This is new code provision will apply operations that are semi-commercial in nature. Example would be a facility to train horses, but not hold public events or competitions. This type of facility should not be required to comply with the permitting requirements for a full equestrian facility. Another example to that would be going with the boarders that are at a private facility. For our barn specifically, we have 4 kids that board their horses here and ride. We bring a trainer on site.
1 minute.
We bring a trainer on site. Stay safe. The 5th child would be my son personally. So I feel that for our barn and to keep these children safe, we need to have different permitting requirements for these arenas. In closing, on behalf of the equestrian owners in Clark County, I do hope that you amend a code that clearly defines a private riding arena versus a public riding arena and remove this requirement for the building permits for a private riding arena. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michelle. Next up is Jason Fila, and following Jason will be Erica Alvord.
Hello, thanks for letting me talk. Everyone's pretty much hit on every topic that I even thought about talking about. So I would like to see maybe a grandfather clause kick in or do away with the Site 2 permit for buildings that were built in the 80s, 90s, or even the early 2000s. To bring them up to the current standard of Walmart code, I think is infeasible for the owners of something like that right now. That's about all I've got. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Jason.
That's it.
It looks like our next two participants, we don't see that they've logged in, Erica and Teresa. So we'll go to Catherine Tilkin. And after Catherine Tilkin will be Tyler Castle. Catherine, we're getting you set up right now.
Okay, sorry, I was waiting.
Yep, you're good. That was on us. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. My name is Catherine Tilkin. I'm owner of Short Acres Farm in Hawkinson. 29 years as a community member, community service, and I just wanted to thank you guys for your time. Mostly, I'm getting involved in this process to represent the future generations that want to absolutely own and operate riding equestrian facilities. And it really is painful to hear that in the dairy community, how talking to all of my farmer friends, that it's come to a place where the dairy farms were pushed out of Clark County. And my fear is, as I am reaching a point of retirement, that these codes and requirements are going to make it absolutely unattainable for the next generation to have horse riding facilities. So one, I wanted to talk about operational impacts, and two, in an other category, is what can we do through this permit process to make sure that we guarantee that if we get this process in place, that the permits will run with the land. As I sell my facility to my daughter, I want to make sure that she's protected. And I really want to make sure that that's written into the new permit process. Secondly, I wanted to touch upon, has the county ever been sued in an equestrian facility type of lawsuit? That would be my question to you guys. And if so, what we've done on our case is we have commercial liability insurance. So if our buildings and our electrical and our services are all insured, what liability does the county have that would make you feel threatened to be liable for something that happens on our facility? So that was a question that I also had. Speaking to Dennis, I was listening to the complaints. It really is painful to hear. I've been in my community where I am right now for 20 years giving lessons, and my neighbors honestly come over to the fence and watch and listen as we teach young children, and they have never once complained about dust or noise or whistle blowing or the things that you were talking about. Is kind of painful to hear that that would be such an intrusive sounds for you. So I'm really sorry that you had that experience, and I hope that my future is thinking about joining the Executive Horse Council and being part of a task force that we can all work together for the noise, odor, dust, traffic complaints, that we could have a team that could actually go out to the farm and work together for solutions. Let's work on a solution-based operation for these code violations and see if we can come together as a community and solidify that we have a future for the littles. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. It looks like Tyler did not log on through our system as well. And Tyler, if you're listening, we still welcome the written comments that you can send in. So next up will be Davey Butler, and after Davey is Roger Sturdivant. Dee, you are unmuted.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dee Butler, and I'm speaking on number 2, private versus public use. I've owned horses and been a riding instructor and an active participant in the equine community in Clark County for almost 25 years. Thank you all for taking your time tonight to listen to us all. I'm just a small-time instructor with a word-of-mouth clientele. I generally have 5 or 6 students taking private lessons from me at a time, and I like to focus on special needs kids and adults who might not have an opportunity to learn about and ride horses any other way. My business is licensed and I pay taxes from this income, but after the horse upkeep, my profit is small. I've taught either at the barn where I board my horses or at stables where my students have boarded their horses. They are all small businesses trying to earn a living and advance the equestrian lifestyle. Under the current code, a riding arena is not considered an agricultural structure. The code holds all facilities to the same standards, requiring huge building permit fees and to undergo a lengthy complicated permitting process, no matter if they are private or public. This process puts an undue burden on the owners of small private barns, such as most of the boarding facilities here in Clark County are. This wide brush would severely compromise opportunities for the owners of these small stables, as well as the trainers, instructors, boarders, and students using their facilities, as that hefty permitting fee would have to be passed along to the users of the arena facilities. These small boarding facilities are critical to the Clark County equine industry and Clark County as a whole. Not so many years ago, Clark County was believed to have the highest number of horses per capita than any other county in the U.S. This industry brings in needed dollars to our community by supporting other equine businesses such as hay and feed stores, equipment sales,
1 minute,
clothing stores, etc. My ask would be that going forward, the code be amended to clearly define what constitutes a riding arena and the applicable building permit process. Private riding arenas that are not open to the public should be exempt from the same building permits required for public riding arenas. An example would be a facility to board and train horses but not hold public events or competitions. This type of facility should not be required to comply with the permitting requirements for a full equestrian facility. Thank you so much for your time.
thank you. Roger Sturdivant and then Robin Yeager.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Roger. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Roger Sturdivant. My wife and I, we own R&R Equestrian. I'm going to be speaking on number 4 because I understand that someone in the county office thinks that no one has tried to apply for a permit. That's not true. And so I'm going to outline what came out of my experience with the county. We applied and had a pre-application conference on January 31st, 2019. The cost for this meeting was $2,935. The only thing that was approved was our setbacks. We were told that we would require landscaping or screening around the parking area with a 6-foot-high fence and 100% obscuring. We all know fencing is expensive. The table 40.340.010.4 does not list the parking requirements for proposed use. The responsible official shall determine the minimum parking requirements for the use. That sounds like a gray area. I don't even know what that means. And then it says the preliminary plan shall accommodate a narrative description of the day-to-day use at the area in order for the staff to determine minimum parking requirements. I don't know what that means either. As far as solid waste, it says based on estimated 47,000 enclosed area, the proposed development would require a minimum 30 by 30 outdoor storage area that's enclosed with a concrete pad. All of our garbage goes out in one trash can every week, and that includes our personal garbage. The fire, it said that we needed to have 3,250 gallons per minute supplied for 120-minute duration. We would require fire hydrants. We would require access roads around all the buildings. We would need approved fire apparatus turnarounds and automatic sprinklers, which would require a separate permit. Separate commercial permits required for each structure. All existing structures to be updated to code, building permits required, even though they were built in the 70s. A professional engineer shall perform site distance certification. And I was told that he would go, I was told he'd go to the end of the driveway and look both ways to see if cars could pull in. I have a 1 mile of straight flat road on each side of my driveway. Said we would need paved parking for handicap parking, indoor handicap bathrooms, one for men, one for women, and we couldn't use the portable handicapped ones. Animals to be enclosed and soundproof, Clark County Development Review Evaluation Letter, impact fee estimated at $6,600. Our farm has been a horse boarding.
3 minutes are up.
Okay, can you start my wife's and then I'll wrap it up and she can have it?
Yes, so Robin, is your wife the next person?
Yes.
Okay, we'll start the 3 minutes for her.
Thank you. Our farm has been a horse boarding facility for over 20 years, although Clark County says it hasn't because it was never permitted. Well, of course it wasn't permitted. It's impossible for those kind of things to happen. If a soundproof barn, my barn wouldn't work at all. I'd have to build a new barn for hundreds of thousands of dollars. I have a business license and I pay my taxes. I have insurance. There's just no money left at the end of the month. This is my wife's lifelong dream, and we do it for the love of the animals and the wonderful impact horses have on the community in keeping our youth active, responsible, and involved in keeping the sport of horses alive for future generations. Thank you. I'll let my wife take over.
Hi, my name's Robin. I'm going to talk about number 4. I personally boarded at this facility in 2001 before we purchased it. It was always a dream of mine to have this place, and we finally were able to buy it less than 2 years ago. I wanted to have a boarding facility because there's people that want horses and have them in their life that cannot afford their own barn and property and need boarding and riding facilities. We keep our facility very clean, we keep it healthy, and we want to share it with other horse owners and groups and for recreational activity. Horse recreation should not be considered public use. And I would ask that the codes reflect our desire to have horses in our life and make it easy for us to enjoy them. Thank you.
Thank you. So our next person was Robert Roberts, and it looks like he also did not log in through our system. So we will go to Gabrielle Larson, and after Gabrielle, it'll be Noel Rodolari.
Good evening, counselors. This is Gabrielle Larson here. I just wanted to, first off, say thank you for everybody's time, council members and staff that are actually joining tonight. We really appreciate it. We know everybody's got families, so thank you so much for your time here. And other speakers, thank you for your time as well. I know that, you know, our community comes together in times like this, so it's highly appreciated that everybody's doing what they are doing tonight and back in February when I attended that meeting as well. So thank you to everybody. I am actually the marketing coordinator for a local nonprofit. Basically what we do is we help combat PTSD and traumatic brain injury through equine therapy out of La Center, Washington. Now it's a 501c3 nonprofit, so it's not a commercial use facility where essentially, you know, we're charging fees and stuff like that. I mean, it's not for profit is what it is, right? And so one of the topics that I want to start with is the second on private versus public use. I think a few solutions to some of these topics. First is the term equestrian facility refers to facilities that are basically used by the general public where a fee is being charged for a service. I just think that in this definition and in the code in general, I just think there's a lack of understanding of our industry on what we do, on how we do it, on landowners and how they take care of their animals and how they run their business model. And so I think the definition definitely needs to be amended, but I think that before that even takes place, really there needs to be an understanding of our industry, whether that's touring facilities, visiting horse shows, going to cattle events out of the area. You know, I know some of the local arenas here spoke tonight. We appreciate you guys for hosting events. You guys are incredible. Thank you for what you do. And I think that as understanding of our industry comes to light, I think that a lot of these definitions are going to end up being amended and more focused on our industry. The final thing is fixing the verbiage used for soundproofing and confinement of animals. I think that just needs to be eliminated altogether. Reason being is because in soundproofing, there's some serious safety issues that could happen with that. I mean, let's just look at everything that's happened the last couple of months. You've got the Malala fires, you've got all these things that have happened. And if we weren't able to hear our horses in the middle of the night as
30 seconds.
I think that we'd be in some serious trouble. You know, so I think that eliminating those is going to be incredibly important here. thank you all for your time. That's all we have for tonight with 3 minutes. So I appreciate everything.
Thank you, Gabriel.
Thank you.
Noel is next, and then the person after them again did not sign up through our system. That was Solomon. So we'll be going to Rebecca Larimer. My apologies. So Noel.
Hello, my name is Noel Rodolari, and I'm a private horse owner with a small private 3-stall barn. And I'd like to talk to item number 2, private versus public. I think everything I have to say has already been said, but I'd just like to reiterate it to stress the importance. First of all, I'm asking for the definition of equestrian facilities to be more fairly considered and applied so that the actual circumstances for each equestrian facility is addressed, and in particular, the land use. Pleasure, please don't put private barns and riding arenas into what's considered, quote, equestrian facilities, unquote. And also, I'd like to see the number of the threshold within the definition of equestrian facilities in the 40.100.070 from 6 or more horses to something that's more amenable to all the people that have over 6 horses already. Another point that I'd like to make is, or another request is that Clark County acknowledge horse owners with private property and their own horses they're not running equestrian facilities for commercial gain. So, you know, I have horses for personal use and not for any financial gain. And also maybe some of these facilities, like the larger barns, boarding stables, could be grandfathered in. I'd really like to see
1 minute.
Really like to see some of these folks that are trying to run a boarding stable be grandfathered in and not be expected to spend hundreds of thousands and potentially lose their business and have to move away. Yeah, I came to Clark County excited that I was going to be in a horse community, and I'd really like to promote that. And thank you for listening to all our comments and requests. Really appreciate you giving up your evening, and hope to hear more conversations on this topic. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up is Rebecca Larimer, and after Rebecca, we had Carol Lebanon. We don't see that she's logged in, but I know that we've received some email communication. So after, it'll be Jamie Housley after Rebecca.
Good evening. My name is Rebecca Larimer. I am an internationally certified instructor to teach in over 22 different countries throughout the world. I went and lived in Belgium for 3 years to train with my 6-time Olympian riding instructor and trainer. So I am extremely involved with horses. This is my livelihood, and I absolutely love being able to help people have joy and understanding and obtaining clear communication with their horses. I'm going to talk about basically trying all of the topics. So topic 1, horses are livestock. They are not pets. As such, I request horse structures, including riding arenas, should be zoned agricultural buildings. I am working outside all day, every day, and I at least need a cover over my head, let alone all of my clients as I'm giving lessons throughout the winter. All existing facilities should be grandfathered in. Any existing agricultural structures that have previously housed livestock, such as an old dairy farm, should be allowed to transform into future horse facilities as well. Topic 2, I really need to request that you protect our equestrian facilities with fair and reasonable codes. We are not hosting huge shows open to the public. You know, this isn't the Olympics or some, you know, we don't have any facilities that have 3, 4+ arenas going and hosting huge public events. Most facilities, just aren't open to the general public. Anybody that visits our facilities must receive permission from the owners, from the trainer, whether it's the landowner or the owner of the horses, and they all must sign our liability release form.
1 minute.
Okay. Topic 3. I love new neighbors. I love people moving into our area and helping have a thriving community. But all farming and agricultural activities, including dust, noise, and smells, need to just be understood. It is unreasonable for people to move next to any farm and then complain about common, safe, time-old practices, and complaining about the dust and smells and all of that. Topic number 4. Oops, let me get to it.
30 seconds.
Okay. Equestrian facilities are a textbook model for rural businesses and economic vitality. This land use is consistent with Clark County's comprehensive plan and the GMA, burdening rural landowners with unreasonable standards of review and an expensive permitting process does not serve Clark County's interests or promote the vitality of the county's rural economy. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Next up is Jamie Housley.
Oh, there I am. Hi, Jamie Housley, Jordan Ramus, attorney for the Equestrian Coalition, chair acquiring and counselor, staff, and public. I'll be touching on all of the topics briefly, but first of all, I want to commend the council and the community for taking the equestrian code up. Second, I have done well more than 1,000 hearings in my career, and I do not think that I've heard better, more poignant public testimony that's going right to the heart of the criteria than I am hearing tonight. And having been around the county's land use system basically my whole life, I can attest that this is an issue that the can keeps continually getting kicked down the road, but the time has come that we need to address it. County code enforcement has gone after the equestrian community, and I, for one, think that when you have numerous code enforcement complaints or threats thereof, it's not necessarily a problem with a bunch of scofflaws out there as it is a problem with an unclear code. And so during a time when the pandemic has happened and your processes to amend the codes have been halted due to the limitations, I really appreciate the council still being able to move forward in this manner, and hopefully we can address that. And we're at a point where we need to do it now. So to the solutions, obviously we need to fix the code. We need to have reasonable building requirements, and that's topic number 1. We should not require soundproof structures. First of all, what does that even mean? And is that even a good idea? And is that a cost prohibitive thing in the first place? Secondly, sprinklers. This is an outright departure from what's required by the IBC, and the county has taken it upon itself to require that. We need to have some modification of that. Topic 2, private and public. You've heard a lot about this and the need to differentiate between the two, so I won't belabor that point any further, but that needs to be addressed. Operational impacts. These are the objective code standards such as odor, noise, hours of operation, et cetera, and ways to mitigate. There's ways that we can implement through code language how to meet those and be very, very clear both to the applicant and to the public what those standards are and how our people can meet those. There also needs to be, under topic 4, other definitional changes in the code. But moreover, the county needs to implement its own comprehensive plan that seeks to harmonize these equestrian activities, which are traditional to the rural area, with the needs of the residents moving in. We need to have a simple, objective criteria with reasonable mitigation. So on behalf of our client, we look forward to developing a code that works for the equestrian community, the citizens of Clark County, and county staff in terms of implementing it. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that concludes the individuals who are on our list for tonight. And so before, we might have one. Hold on just a second, please. Sorry. Yes, that does conclude. Some of the individuals who did sign up used the call-in number rather than the link that we sent them. So I would encourage them to send their comments to equestrianfeedback@clark.wa.gov. And before I actually hand it over to the council to see if they have any comments at the end, I would like to personally thank everybody for joining us this evening and sharing your stories and your insights with regards to what's working and not working regarding the equestrian facility. With regards to next steps, as I said, the equestrian feedback at clark.wa.gov will be continuing to receive feedback through that email link through Friday, October 16th. So if you have additional information, please send that in. All of this information, the feedback tonight and the written feedback, will be submitted to the council and staff, and they will have future conversations to determine and communicate what the next steps will be. So with that said, before we sign off, I would like to ask our county council if any of them have any comments to share.
I would just begin by thanking everybody who participated in this, and saying too that we value the equestrian community in Clark County. It looks like we have some work to do, or maybe even undo. So those would be my comments.
Madam Chair.
Councilor Ross.
I would, I would reiterate what Jamie Housley mentioned. I think, he's done more of these public participation events than I have over his years as representing folks in the community. But I think tonight was probably one of the most productive evenings that we've had. And I know it's challenging doing this remotely. So I really, really appreciate those who took the time to call in, to be succinct, to be clear. I think we have so much really, really good stuff here to work with as we look at this code. And I look forward, based on tonight and the future and the past involvement of this community, putting together a working group if we can and get to a code that makes sense. And I think you've given us a lot to go on, and I just really, really appreciate it. So thank you so much for everyone joining us tonight.
Madam Chair.
Councilor Blah.
I would echo those comments and just say, I think the thing that I appreciate the most about tonight is it was very solutions focused, and we heard very little complaining about the rough road, and there's been plenty to complain about, but it was all very forward looking and talking about how can we make this better. So thank you for everyone for preparing excellent testimony, bringing us concrete, solid action steps that we can implement going forward, and look forward to having these conversations.
Madam Chair.
Councilor.
And I'll echo what we've already heard. Thank you to everybody for taking the time, not just to call in, but to put together such important and helpful commentary. Really appreciate it. As they've already said, a lot of really good detail here that'll help us move in the right direction. So thank you, and thank you to staff for pulling this together.
And Madam Chair. Thank you. So this absolutely exceeded my expectations. Everyone I had communicated with ahead of time, I was asking for very specific recommendations, and boy, did we get them. I think we have so much to work with here. And I've heard the word working group mentioned by the first speaker. Councilor Olson just mentioned it. I'm hoping that we get to that. Once we do have the staff work through all these issues, and there's some real difficult ones here for definitions, private versus public. That's a big one. But once the staff works through that and gets, I think a lot of the code that should be eliminated can easily be done. But once we get to the point where we're going to try to make this right and get it done right now, I think we do need to have a working group at some point and more interaction with the experts out in the equestrian community. So thank you, Madam Chair. And I know we have a lot to do, and it's hard to do it in these conditions. But I think the Zoom worked. I think everyone got their say. But if we need to do this again, then we should. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to thank the county manager, Kathleen Otto, for being our facilitator this evening.
Thank you. So as mentioned, we'll be communicating and be transparent as how we move forward as we continue to receive the feedback and get direction moving forward. So I think that is all we'll conclude for tonight. So everybody have a good night and thank you again.
Did we try calling back or no?